What are your top priorities as a candidate for the Select Board?
Okay, so my top priorities as a candidate for the Plymouth Select Board are, and I'm just building off an old saying in business, where they said the three most important things in business are location, location, location. My top priorities are water, water, water. And this community is not in a good place when it comes to water. If you look back roughly 90 years, back into the 1930s, the Boston area in the 128 belt had come through almost a century of out-of-control development, followed by where do we get sustainable water sources from? And finally, that came to a head in the mid-1930s when the state forcibly removed roughly 4,000 to 5,000 people about 70 miles west of Boston and created the Quabbin Reservoir. So if they stop raining tomorrow, the Quabbin has a supply of water for 6 years. And that's obviously taking care of predominantly the Boston 128 area. Roughly 125 years ago, the state came down to the communities of Pembroke, Kingston, Halifax, and Plimpton and gave complete control over the 7th largest naturally occurring body of water in the Commonwealth, Silver Lake, gave complete control of that body of water to the city of Brockton, where here we are 125 years later. The city of Brockton takes, 10 to 13 million gallons of surface water, flows through a pipe 10 miles west, and that's what they do with, for their source of water. The state is not coming down to this community to save us. They won't do that. You're on your own. So we have to figure it out, and you've got to figure it out quickly, because you've got 15 years to go. This community is going to reach build out, and there will be nothing left. You will be fighting over scraps of land. So in August of 17, I did a site visit on a 200-acre site down off of Long Pond Road. I stood there with the former chair of the Select Board, the former water superintendent, and the former DPW director, and we talked about the drought coming out of the 2016 summer and how it negatively impacted our water system. And one of the wells, the Manomet well, went down to effectively nothing multiple times. And I asked the question of the two town employees, what did you do? And the quote was, we crossed our fingers and hoped that the public didn't figure it out. So that's not a good place to be. So that means you have no security, no long-term security in your water system, and you have no redundancy. So there is only one aquifer, and we have to do everything in our power to ensure that this community, for economic development, for public safety, and for public health, has a long-term, sustainable source of fresh water. A few years ago, so that occurred in August of 17. In August of 22, I sat down with the department head, and one of the updates I got on behalf of the community was that researching of desalination plants was happening. So that's usually something that would be reserved for maybe the Southern California area, near the Mojave Desert, Western Texas, or maybe the Middle East. It's embarrassing that this community has gotten to that point in time. So there cannot be enough emphasis on water. That should be our top priority. My second, obviously there's a multitude of priorities I have, but the second priority is we have to break our addiction to raising property taxes. There's some sort of fascination with that. Proposition 2.5 is a complete disaster. I won't go into that now. But outside of the general fund, if we have enough vision and we properly fund it with non-property taxes, we can make significant investments in infrastructure without raising property taxes. So psychologically, it's fascinating to me how the first children in September of 1910, I believe, entered Hedge Elementary 115 years ago. And here we are today, and some people in the community are beside themselves because we're talking about replacing and investing in infrastructure for our children. Well, if the proper planning had occurred, we'd be in a position right now where we wouldn't have to raise property taxes. And I brought an initiative to town meeting a few years ago where we tweaked the meals tax account and we expanded that out to cover modernization and new construction of public education facilities, public safety, and DPW. And right now, the meals tax, the delta over the mortgage payment on the town hall is about $525,000. As long as there's not another pandemic, that delta will continue to grow. And we should strategically, when given the opportunity, continue to deposit monies in there, because that is also an interest-bearing account. And the more money we put into that account, non-property taxes, of course, the slower your property taxes will go up. And that's another one of my priorities, is to continue to invest in that account so that we can get out ahead of things, and we're not always completely reliant on just exponentially growing property taxes.
What challenges do you see as a candidate for the Select Board?
Our reliance on the federal government for at least the next 3 years and 10 months might be a little less reliable than it has been for the last several decades. So what I mean by that is, you've just seen the Pilgrim Hall Museum has lost a $200,000 grant for, I believe, the protection of some documents, and which is significant enough, but the community currently has a multi-billion-dollar liability over the course of the next several decades with respect to infrastructure needs. And sometimes, now not on the school level, because schools are covered locally and with matching funds from the state, which comes out of a penny from the sales tax in this Commonwealth. But at the federal level, if you look at the Department of Energy and Environment with respect to investing in restoration, the dredging of Jenny Pond, dam protection, and things along that line, it is distinctly possible that there could be a loss of federal revenues moving forward. And town meeting recently approved their share, roughly $6.5 million, to fix the Jenny Dam. But of course, that project will not go forward unless we know that we're going to get our reimbursement from the federal level. So that's going to be a significant challenge. And obviously, that impacts the entire Commonwealth. That impacts thousands of jobs and employment for individuals who are just trying to make ends meet, predominantly in the middle class. Another challenge that we're facing in the community is that some of our commercial centers are being transitioned into residential development. It's very difficult to provide jobs in the community where people don't have to travel into the city or to other communities to work. We want people to be able to work in the community and make a livable wage where they can either buy or rent comfortably in the community and not struggle to get by, but they can also get ahead. And there are laws and there are objectives at the state level that don't mesh with that. Specifically the 40B, quote-unquote, affordable housing law from 1969, which means that you can put this incredibly dense housing virtually anywhere in a community. And those are significant challenges to us. I want to make sure that we are maximizing all the village centers out with respect to whatever we can do to support those businesses so that they are, all those shops are full and all our current areas are maximized to the point where, some of them might be below 50%. So that's another significant challenge that the community faces moving forward. So another challenge, obviously, which is going on perpetually in this community is incredible pressure with respect to residential development. And currently the board is dealing with a Chapter 61 filing down in the southwest corner of the community, which is at the currently Atlantic Country Club, which comprises about 177 acres. And the community is currently on the clock. We're probably about 7 to 10 days into the 120-day window, which we are afforded. So this is significant. if this has been going on in the community and at a pace unprecedented for the last several decades, and this is just another example that if hundreds of units are put down in the furthest reaches of this community, the incredible pressure on roads, water, sewer, and schools is again just going to be another burden on the budget of the community that we can't necessarily afford. So the board is currently committed to taking the time to go through this as much as possible. I'm certainly committed to taking it out and not relinquishing our right of first refusal to at least the 115th, 119th day. But I can assure you right now that the board is fully committed to engaging, especially with the state and the private sector, to see what we can do on this issue and see if we can come to some sort of an agreement that would that would require us to call for a special town meeting to have town meeting weigh in on whether or not they would want to secure this parcel of land.
What opportunities do you see as a candidate for the Select Board?
There are opportunities financially that are coming down the pike with respect to the community's future. And back in 1988, the Commonwealth passed some legislation that mandated that all communities would be fully funded in their pension fund by the year 2040. And we are within a decade of that. And once we make our last payment, $37 million will come off the books. So this is significant, even though it's a decade away, so that if we properly plan, the objective should be not to backfill that $37 million in the budget with any OPEB contributions or infrastructure needs. Those should be properly handled and properly funded outside of the general fund so that the property tax individual, whether it's a residential, industrial, commercial business, is not feeling the impact of that. The paying off of that liability is dovetailing on the calendar with probably, I think most likely, a multi-billion-dollar build-out on the 150 to 250 acres, which is closest to the ocean, of the former Pilgrim Power Plant. Decommissioning should be done within a decade, 7 to 10 years, and you're going to see some sort of proposal come forward on that parcel of land. Now, what form that takes is unknown at this time, but undoubtedly, you are going to get a significant proposal for building out that former site. And obviously, God willing, the community is able to secure the predominantly 12 to 1,500 acres adjacent to it of forested land. But the key to the whole thing is, whatever goes there will immediately become the #1 taxpayer in the community. And if a future select board, FinCom, and town meeting can learn from the mistakes of the past and take that revenue and proactively invest it in the right funds, you'll have the ability to further lower taxes and prevent taxes from going up billions of dollars. So that's a significant opportunity that is in the future of this community. And obviously I'm not going to see that in the next 3 years if I'm fortunate enough to get reelected. But those things are out there, and I'm going to do whatever I can to position the community so that they can react appropriately. It's been the honor of my life to serve on the Plymouth Select Board for the last 15 years. I don't know where the time goes. It's just amazing how quickly it passes. Over the course of that time, I've focused especially on fiscal improvements to the budget. And one of the things that I'm proud of is that working with my colleagues on the Select Board back in 2017 and with the town manager at the time and the finance director, we put together a program that for the first time since Proposition 2.5 was passed in '81, the community was proactively investing in roads. And we've done that every other year. We've taken a bucket of money. We've proactively invested in roads so that for the first time, the auto excise tax that you're being charged is actually being invested back into the roads. And we have made significant progress in that regard over the last 8 years. And I hope that some of you, if not all of you, will have noticed some of those improvements, especially you residents of River Street and others, so that I believe that it was hypocritical that 2.5 was set up so that a roads tax would be charged to the taxpayer that wouldn't go to roads. But I'm not going to keep going on that topic right now. The other thing I'm proud of is that taking the meals tax and expanding it out beyond just paying the $1.79 million mortgage on the new town hall. Again, the delta on that is currently about $520,000 to $530,000. If it continues to grow, we will be able to not only pay the mortgage on the town hall, but because we tweaked that account and allowed for incremental investment in DPW, public safety, and public education, if another $10 million investment came along, that account could also handle that and continue to pay the 1.8 roughly on your mortgage on the town hall. And obviously there are still more opportunities to do with that fund, because the more we put in there, the lower your property taxes are. The less we put in there, the higher your property taxes go. There's an inverse relationship, okay? But the thing that I may be most proud of is that 12 years ago this month, I got up on town meeting floor in April of 2013, and I told town meeting at the time that it wasn't a question of if that power plant was going to close, it was a question of when. And we needed to be ready for it financially. If there were any security issues, economic development issues, or if we had the opportunity to secure that land for the community, we needed to think proactively and long-term and improve the community's position on that topic. Town meeting agreed with me. We created that stabilization fund, and today that fund has $10.4 million in it. So I'm going to make the statement, and I stand by this statement until somebody can give me another example and correct me, that I'm the only individual at the local level in the history of Massachusetts to create a fund that was specifically put there to buy a particular piece of land. And in this case, that land is the Holtec property adjacent to the 134 acres that they're currently decommissioning, and that encompasses 1,531 acres. So in addition to creating the fund with the nearly $10.5 million in it to potentially purchase that land, we also have a document that guarantees the community the right of first refusal to purchase the land for 8 years. That document expires on June 30th of 2031, so we currently have 6 years and 2 months to go on that document. And in that document, you don't have 120 days to perform. So if you look at Atlantic Country Club right now, where we have 120 days to figure out whether or not we're going to move forward and match that offer, in the current document on the 1,531 acres of Holtec land, we have 270 days or 9 months to perform. And you're probably not going to find another community that has ever positioned themselves in a better place to buy land. And the only thing that we're missing right now is a willing seller. So these are the things that I advocate for. I'm just going to continue to do more of that, putting the community in a better place financially. And I respectfully ask for your vote on Saturday, May 17th.